Hi, my name is Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf, and I am one of the Central East Regional Field staff. I work with a number of congregations in Ohio and Pittsburgh, and my number one job is to offer support to everyone at Summer Institute. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this video. I hope that you can hear me and see me okay. I know that there had been commentary about improving this. This will not be the video next year. Let's just hope it's enough for this year. Today's safety video covers a number of key things that you need to know in the events that an emergency strikes, and to help us be as safe as we can possibly be. The first thing I want to say is to be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the people, be aware of scooters, of bikes, of golf carts, of cars in the street, of folks who run quickly and folks who can hurt themselves seriously if they fall. It is our job to be aware and care for one another as the great chosen family of the week. And so I encourage you to use your awareness to be an agent of love and care for all of the people in this community. One thing I specifically want to note is that oftentimes our most dangerous point is the distance between our vehicle, whatever that vehicle may be, a car, a bike, anything, to the door of wherever we're going. And that's because our mind is usually on anything but what is happening in that moment. We're thinking about the meeting we just came from, or the meeting we just are going to, or the 50 things in our to-do list. And that can lead to everything from falling injuries to actually being a target from criminal activity. Criminals actually know that this is the time when people are paying the least amount of attention and will seek you out if you're not aware. And of course, that's not all of the time. And it's still a risk that we run. So please be aware of your surroundings. Please be aware that we do have a high preponderance of bike theft here in Oberlin, and that you should have all of your bikes locked and locked to a bike locking station or something that is immovable. We have had one bike that was locked that was stolen this week already, and we don't want anybody else to have that experience. The next thing I would like to talk to you about is what to do with difficult people who you might identify as dangerous, but may or may not be. What we try to do is pay attention to not who a person is, but the behaviors that they engage in. That's because we often look for the people who are different than us, who might cause us harm. And actually, more often than not, violent activity comes from people that we know, even can be family members. And we don't often look for the places that violence may actually come from as a result. So the things that we encourage folks, first off, is your name tag is a line of security defense. If you're wearing a name tag, we know you belong in this community. And we know that you've talked to someone in this community, and that is seriously important. And so keeping your name tag on you and looking for people's name tags matters. Now keep in mind, youth, children, they may put their name tag down somewhere and forget it. We don't want to just assume that somebody doesn't belong because they don't have this on. But it is a good clue as to whether a person is supposed to be here or not. Also, if they're wearing one of the wristbands or have that on their person. We want to pay attention to behaviors, but we also want to be careful that we're not making assumptions. So often, for example, we look for eye contact from someone. And it's important to know that folks who are neuroatypical, that means they live with autism or some other form of differently way of being mentally in the world, folks who have come from trauma, experienced violence in their lives, and actually a number of cultures do not use eye contact. There are a number of cultures where eye contact is actually considered aggressive and even offensive. So just know that the behaviors you might assume to be dangerous aren't necessarily. What we look for is the person in relationship with people in our community. When they are approached, do they say hi back? And if you're really not sure if someone is safe or not, I encourage you to find someone else, particularly someone you may not always agree with or have the same ideas as, to see if they have the same assessment. If you're just not sure and you're not feeling safe, talk to any of the folks with the orange bands or any of the bandanas on themselves, or feel free to contact security and they can do the check. We just want everybody to be safe, but we also don't want our assumptions to get away in the way of someone having a good time at SI when they actually belong here. When it comes to medical emergencies, if it is life-threatening, call 911, or you can call campus security. You should call campus security one way or the other because they often know where places are on campus that emergency personnel do not. But as soon as you find out that someone is having a medical emergency, the first job is either for you or for you to appoint someone to call 911, get the emergency personnel present so that they can respond quickly. Also, if it's not a life-threatening emergency, keep in mind that there is a hospital literally 2 blocks away from us, and you can simply go down there and go to the emergency room if that's a possibility. We do have nurses available for smaller injuries, but when it comes to things that are life-threatening, immediately go to emergency personnel. Do not wait. When it comes to tornado warnings, which is actually a pretty significant possibility here in Lorain County, they've had over 30 tornadoes in the last 50, 60 years. We want to make sure that everyone knows what they're supposed to do. We have a lot of folks from Ohio or from Midwestern states where tornadoes are common. So if you're really not sure what to do, talk to your neighbor. They can help you. Otherwise, just be aware that you want to get indoors if at all possible. And if you can't get indoors, you want to get below ground. And so what happens is a tornado follows the path of least resistance. It means that they actually could go through a building, but they don't dip down into places very often. In fact, most tornadoes don't even hit the ground. And so if you find yourself outside, get into a ditch, get into a lower place, and wait there. And then do anything you can to protect your head, because the most dangerous part of a tornado, other than the tornado itself, is the debris that flies around. Please keep in mind that it is a myth that windows blow outward in a tornado. In fact, they do tend to blow inward, and no open window changes pressure inside of a building. Any kind of glass anywhere is a danger to you no matter what you do. So your best bet is to, if you can, get to a basement, get below ground. And if you cannot, get into a room that has no windows or things that could blow at you. Anywhere inward in a building is a good idea. The next thing is to keep in mind about fires. Fires are hopefully uncommon, but we are Unitarian Universalists. We do light candles, and there are other things that can happen. In the event of a fire, the number one thing is to get everyone out of the way of the fire first. Do that before anything else. And then the second thing is to call 911 or call security, get emergency personnel involved right away. And then after that, make sure that all the windows and doors around the fire are closed so that no more oxygen is getting into that space. And then and only then if you are able to put out the fire. And for that, you'll need a fire extinguisher. So just remember the first task of anybody in that situation, get everyone out of the danger of the fire, call emergency services, reduce oxygen, and then put out the fire if it's safe to do so. Finally, I want to talk about probably one of the most difficult subjects, which is active shooter situations. And what's interesting is in our communities, the most prepared folks other than emergency personnel and teachers themselves in our community are actually our children and youth who attend school because they routinely train in active shooter situations. And so they may not know the particulars of what's happening, but they know the basic steps. And so the information I'm sharing with you comes from Homeland Security, it comes from the FBI, it comes from almost every police department in the country, which is to follow the rule of 3. The first thing is if you can run, run. There are a few things with that. One, it's harder to hit a moving target. And 2, the further you get away from a shooter, the harder it is to actually hit you. And so if you can get away, if you can get out of the building, if you can get off the property, get away. Just do it. If it is impossible for you physically, or it's just impossible for you because you don't know where the shooter is, or you just know you're not going to be able to get away, your second option is to hide. In some places, it's called sheltering in place. And with that, if you're in a room where the shooter is not, close the door, turn off the lights, and get visually out of sight. Or get behind something so that they can't see you. That is the second choice. And then the final choice, and it's not really much of a choice, quite frankly, but you may find yourself right next to the person with no way to escape. At that point, you can fight back or do what you can to distract them or get the gun out of their hands or those kinds of things. But that really should only be an avenue of last resort. Your first real options are run and hide. And also please remember that when police or emergency personnel show up on site, they're not going to know if you're a danger or not. And so please be aware that If they tell you to get on your knees and put your hands up, you will do that because they don't know who the active shooter in the situation is. Finally, what I'll say is you want to have brave space here. There's no way that we can make perfectly safe space here, but we can do the best we can to prevent things from happening and to help people navigate all the struggles that they face. And so we encourage you to be aware of one another, to offer support where you can. Know that all of the key leaders, everybody who's been wearing bandanas, have been invited to a much longer, more in-depth training on how to respond to some of these things, and you can rely on us to offer support. The most important thing is to enjoy the SI Magic, have a lot of fun this week, and know that we are so excited you are here and so excited to share this wonderful time with you, hopefully a little safer than we were yesterday, knowing we can never keep everything permanently safe, but we can always have fun. Have a blessed day. Have a great SI. Thanks, everybody.